Three people went up to the garden to heaven. They were surprised to find themselves in such a serene and beautiful place with flowers blooming and birds singing. It was unlike anything they had ever seen on earth. They walked around, taking in the beauty and tranquility of the garden, feeling a sense of peace they had never experienced before. As they wandered, they noticed a staircase leading up to the sky, and they decided to follow it, curious to see where it would lead. God came out to them and said, "Heaven is closed today. The gates are shut and no one can enter. However, I am willing to make an exception for one of you." "But there's a catch," God continued. "Whoever tells the most interesting death story will enter." The three people looked at each other, realizing that this was their chance to gain entry into heaven. They each began to think about their own death stories, trying to remember every detail that might make their story the most compelling. The first man stepped forward and began his story. "For a long time I thought my wife was cheating on me," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I had my suspicions, but I never had any proof. Today, I came home unexpectedly, hoping to catch her in the act. I saw all the signs," he continued. "There was lipstick on the collar of a shirt that wasn't mine, and I found suspicious objects hidden around the house. My heart was pounding as I searched for more evidence. I looked in every corner of the house," he said, his voice growing more intense. "I checked under the bed, in the closets, and even in the bathroom, but I couldn't find anyone. Finally, I went out to the balcony," he said, his eyes wide with the memory, "and that's when I saw it, a hand gripping the edge of the balcony. I didn't think twice. I immediately dropped it, letting the person fall. But I wasn't satisfied," he continued. "Just to be safe, I also threw a refrigerator at him. I wanted to make sure he wouldn't survive. Because of all the stress and adrenaline, I had a heart attack and died," he concluded, his voice filled with regret. "And that's how I ended up here." God said, "Wow, what a story. What about you?" He turned to the second person, who looked nervous but determined to tell his tale. He asks, pointing to the other person. The second person took a deep breath and began his story. "I was relaxing on my balcony at home," he said, his voice calm and steady. "It was a beautiful day, and I was enjoying the sunshine. But then I leaned a little too much on the fence and it gave way. I fell, but I managed to grab the neighbor's balcony below me. I was hanging there, trying to pull myself up," he continued. "But then, out of nowhere, some crazy person came and knocked me down. I couldn't believe it. I fell again, but this time I landed in a garbage can. I thought I was safe," he said, shaking his head. "But then, a refrigerator landed on me. I didn't stand a chance, and that's how I ended up here." "It's a really interesting story," he concluded, looking at God hopefully. God says, "What about you?" He turned to the third person, who had been listening intently to the other stories. The third person smiled and said, "I was in the refrigerator.